My name is Anjali. Welcome to the free online course in English Grammar by Live and Learn. I hope you enjoy this lesson and I hope you find it useful. If you do, please like the video, subscribe to my YouTube channel and share this lesson with anybody that you know who might also be interested in improving their English by learning English grammar. Thank you. Let's move on to the lesson. Live and Learn free online course in English grammar. Lesson 22. Verbs, Part 9. Auxiliary verbs, Part 1. Conjugation of to have. Affirmative, negative, and interrogative aspects of verb tenses. Affirmative tenses. When tenses are used to make positive sentences, they are called affirmative. Negative tenses. When tenses are used to make negative versions of a sentence, they are called negative. The word not is used with verb tenses to form the negative version of a verb tense. Interrogative tenses. When verb tenses are used in questions, interrogative sentences, they are called interrogative. In English, the interrogative can also have a negative form. We will not go into negative interrogative tenses here. However, they are explained in the Live and Learn English Grammar textbook. Auxiliary verbs and tenses. The auxiliary verbs are to be, to have, and to do. It is very useful if people who are learning English know all the present, past, and future tenses of the auxiliary verbs, as that will make learning verb tenses for all verbs very easy. Auxiliary verbs are very important because they are used with all main lexical verbs when forming verb tenses. They are also called helping verbs. As well as helping main lexical verbs, they help each other to form tenses. To have and to be form most of the verb tenses and are used together in many of the tenses. To have and to do help other verbs to form negative tenses and interrogative tenses. All the verb tenses of the auxiliary verbs are given here. The shortened versions of the personal pronouns and verbs, contractions, are also given where they are applicable, so that you are aware of what they are. The contractions are used more in speech and informal writing than in formal writing. In fact, it is recommended that you do not use the contractions at all in any type of formal writing or business communication, as that may give an unprofessional impression. In this lesson, we will look at the conjugation of the auxiliary verb to have. Conjugation of to have. Infinitive equals to have. Base verb equals have. Present participle equals having. Past participle equals had. No gerund form. 1. The verb to have helps the verb to be in making the perfect tenses of other verbs. To have also helps the verb to do in making negative and interrogative sentences. 2. It is also used to express an obligation to do something. Examples of using to have to express obligation. She is a single mother, so she has to bring up her children by herself. Present obligation. I had no choice, I had to do it. Past obligation. The conjugation of the auxiliary verb to have follows. Present tense. Simple present tense. Note before we begin. The shortened form is only used with another verb. It is incorrect to use it before a noun. Examples. She has seen him. Correct. She's seen him. Correct. I've a blue car. Incorrect. And although people commonly say I've before a noun, they are talking in an informal, slangy way. I have a blue car. Correct. Present tense. Simple present tense. Affirmative. I have, I've, you have, you've, he has, she has, he's, she's, it has, it's, we have, we've, you have, you've, they have, they have, they. Negative. I have not, I haven't. You have not, you haven't. He has not, she has not. He hasn't, she hasn't. It has not, it hasn't. We have not, we haven't. You have not, you haven't. They have not, they haven't. They have not, they haven't. Interrogative. Have I? Have you? Has he? Has she? Has it? Have we? Have you? Have they? Have they? Present continuous or progressive tense. Affirmative. I am having, I'm having, you are having, you're having, he is having, she is having, he's having, she's having, it is having, it's having. We are having, we're having, you are having, you're having, they are having, they're having, they are having, they're having. Negative. I am not having, I'm not having, you are not having, you aren't having, he is not having, she is not having, he isn't having, she isn't having, it is not having, it isn't having, we are not having, we aren't having, you are not having, you aren't having, they are not having, they aren't having, they are not having, they aren't having. Interrogative. Am I having? Are you having? Is he having? Is she having? Is it having? Are we having? Are you having? Are they having? Are they having? Present perfect tense. Affirmative. I have had, I've had, you have had, you've had, he has had, she has had, he's had, she's had, it has had, it's had, we have had, we've had, you have had, you've had, they have had, they've had, they have had, they've had. Negative. I have not had, I haven't had, you have not had, you haven't had, he has not had, she has not had, he hasn't had, she hasn't had, it has not had, it hasn't had, we have not had, we haven't had, You have not had. You haven't had. They have not had. They haven't had. They have not had. They haven't had. Interrogative. Have I had? Have you had? Has he had? Has she had? Has it had? Have we had? Have you had? Have they had? Have they had? Present perfect continuous or progressive tense. Affirmative. I have been having. I've been having. You have been having. You've been having. He has been having. She has been having. He's been having. She's been having. It has been having. It's been having. We have been having. We've been having. You have been having. You've been having. They have been having. They've been having. They have been having. They've been having. Negative. I have not been having. I haven't been having. You have not been having. You haven't been having. He has not been having. She has not been having. He hasn't been having. She hasn't been having. It has not been having. It hasn't been having. We have not been having. We haven't been having. You have not been having. You haven't been having. They have not been having. They haven't been having. They have not been having. They haven't been having. Interrogative. Have I been having? Have you been having? Has he been having? Has she been having? Has it been having? Have we been having? Have you been having? Have they been having? Have they been having? Past tense. Simple past tense. Affirmative. I had. You had. He had. She had. It had. We had. You had. They had. They had. Negative. I did not have. I didn't have. You did not have. You didn't have. He did not have. She did not have. He didn't have. She didn't have. It did not have. It didn't have. We did not have. We didn't have. You did not have. You didn't have. They did not have. They didn't have. They did not have. They didn't have. Interrogative. Did I have? Did you have? Did he have? Did she have? Did it have? Did we have? Did you have? Did they have? Did they have? Past continuous or progressive tense. Affirmative. I was having. You were having. He was having. She was having. It was having. We were having. You were having. They were having. They were having. Negative. I was not having. I wasn't having. You were not having. You weren't having. He was not having. She was not having. He wasn't having. She wasn't having. It was not having. It wasn't having. We were not having. We weren't having. You were not having. You weren't having. They were not having. They weren't having. They were not having. They weren't having. Interrogative. Was I having? Were you having? Was he having? Was she having? Was it having? Were we having? Were you having? Were they having? Were they having? Past perfect tense. Affirmative. I had had. I'd had. You had had. You'd had. He had had. She had had. He'd had. She'd had. It had had. It had had. We had had. We'd had. You had had. You'd had. They had had. They'd had. They had had. They'd had. Negative. I had not had. I hadn't had. You had not had. You hadn't had. He had not had. She had not had. He hadn't had. She hadn't had. It had not had. It hadn't had. We had not had. We hadn't had. You had not had. You hadn't had. They had not had. They hadn't had. They had not had. They hadn't had. Interrogative. Had I had? Had you had? Had he had? Had she had? Had it had? Had we had? Had you had? Had they had? Had they had? Past perfect continuous or progressive tense. Affirmative. I had been having. I'd been having. You had been having. You'd been having. He had been having. She had been having. He'd been having. She'd been having. It had been having. It had been having. We had been having. We'd been having. You had been having. You'd been having. They had been having. They'd been having. They had been having. They'd been having. Negative. I had not been having. I hadn't been having. You had not been having. You hadn't been having. He had not been having. She had not been having. He hadn't been having. She hadn't been having. It had not been having. It hadn't been having. We had not been having. We hadn't been having. You had not been having. You hadn't been having. They had not been having. They hadn't been having. They had not been having. They hadn't been having. Interrogative. Had I been having? Had you been having? Had he been having? Had she been having? Had it been having? Had we been having? Had you been having? Had they been having? Had they been having? Future tense. Simple future tense. Affirmative. I will have. I'll have. You will have. You'll have. He will have. She will have. He'll have. She'll have. It will have. It'll have. We will have. We'll have. You will have. You'll have. They will have. They'll have. They will have. They'll have. Negative. I will not have. I won't have. You will not have. You won't have. He will not have. She will not have. He won't have. She won't have. It will not have. It won't have. We will not have. We won't have. You will not have. You won't have. They will not have. They won't have. They will not have. They won't have. Interrogative. Will I have? Will you have? Will he have? Will she have? Will it have? Will we have? Will you have? Will they have? Will they have? Future continuous or progressive tense. Affirmative. I will be having. I'll be having. You will be having. You'll be having. He will be having. She will be having. He'll be having. She'll be having. It will be having. It'll be having. We will be having. We'll be having. You will be having. You'll be having. They will be having. They'll be having. They will be having. They'll be having. Negative. I will not be having. I won't be having. You will not be having. You won't be having. He will not be having. She will not be having. He won't be having. She won't be having. It will not be having. It won't be having. We will not be having. We won't be having. You will not be having. You won't be having. They will not be having. They won't be having. They will not be having. They won't be having. Interrogative. Will I be having? Will you be having? Will he be having? Will she be having? Will it be having? Will we be having? Will you be having? Will they be having? Will they be having? Future perfect tense. Affirmative. I will have had. I'll have had. You will have had. You'll have had. He will have had. She will have had. He'll have had. She'll have had. It will have had. It'll have had. We will have had. We'll have had. You will have had. You'll have had. They will have had. They'll have had. They will have had. They'll have had. Negative. I will not have had. I won't have had. You will not have had. You won't have had. He will not have had. She will not have had. He won't have had. She won't have had. It will not have had. It won't have had. We will not have had. We won't have had. You will not have had. You won't have had. They will not have had. They won't have had. They will not have had. They won't have had. Interrogative. Will I have had? Will you have had? Will he have had? Will she have had? Will it have had? Will we have had? Will you have had? Will they have had? Will they have had? Future perfect continuous or progressive tense. Affirmative. I will have been having. I'll have been having. You will have been having. You'll have been having. He will have been having. She will have been having. He'll have been having. She'll have been having. It will have been having. It'll have been having. We will have been having. We'll have been having. You will have been having. You'll have been having. They will have been having. They'll have been having. They will have been having. They'll have been having. Negative. I will not have been having. I won't have been having. You will not have been having. You won't have been having. He will not have been having. She will not have been having. He won't have been having. She won't have been having. It will not have been having. It won't have been having. We will not have been having. You won't have been having. You will not have been having. You won't have been having. They will not have been having. They won't have been having. They will not have been having. They won't have been having. Interrogative. Well, I have been having. Will you have been having? Will he have been having? Will she have been having? Will it have been having? Will we have been having? Will you have been having? Will they have been having? Will they have been having? Well done! You have completed this lesson. If you enjoyed the lesson and you found it useful, please do like the video and subscribe to my YouTube channel. If you know anyone who is also interested in improving their command of English by learning English grammar, please share this video lesson with them. If you would like to buy the Live and Learn English Grammar textbook, you can buy it as an ebook or as a paperback from the Amazon website that serves your country of residence. There are some links in the description box below the video. The book does go deeper into aspects of grammar, and it also contains exercises with answers so you can monitor your own progress. Thank you for watching, and I will see you next time.